Is introducing everybody to a geometric pattern that exists on the base 12 Cartesian plane that gives us access to a geometry of the circle that doesn't exist in base 10. That geometry enables us to divide the circle perfectly into 360 degrees, which is something that we can't do in base 10. There's no such diagram that perfectly divides the circle into 360 equal sections. You might think that there is one since we're all so familiar with the idea of 360 degrees, but there is no geometric pattern that actually does so. So it does exist in base 12. I've written a book about it, and here's a picture of what that diagram looks like. I actually ended up building it as a mural on 5 sheets of plywood, and I made some videos about that explaining to you, what it looks like. And I've written a book explaining how to go about creating that geometric structure. It's called Understanding Base 12 Math, How to Draw the Perfect Circle Using Dozenal Geometry. And it really is a simple diagram. The only challenge within the whole thing is that it has to be done on the base 12 Cartesian plane. So you have to embrace Dozenal math in order to construct the diagram. So the difference between the base 10 and base 12 Cartesian planes is that the length of one is divided into twelfths instead of tenths. So it's the fact that the base 12 Cartesian plane has a denser grid than base 10 that allows for more lattice points that are formed by where the horizontal and vertical lines are crossing each other. And that gives rise to points on the Dozenal Cartesian plane or base 12 Cartesian plane that don't exist in base 10. So the diagram ultimately is easy to create because we're simply connecting the dots or using points that are there to define the lengths of radiuses of circles and lines. And then we simply go through the process of dividing the diameter of a polygon into its perimeter, and in such a way that eventually all those points of the diameter on the perimeter of the polygon become points that define the circumference of the circle. And then we just draw larger and larger versions of the circle. We get to 30 rings of the diagram, and that divides the circle into 360 degrees. And then we realize we can just keep going, and that this is actually, we're building the geometry of the circle from the inside out, and we can literally plot hundreds of thousands of millions and billions and trillions of points on the circle. And this allows for the perfect division of the circle and the creation of a circle that has symmetry and balance within its structure. And the secret, if you want to call it that, is that we acknowledge the empty space that exists within irrational numbers. Currently, our model is a solid line with a little gap at the end when we talk about irrational numbers. But in truth, that empty space can be dispersed throughout the circumference of the circle. So that's what my book's all about. That gives rise to a number. I got it on my blackboard there that has all sorts of patterns in it. That's the base 12 version of pi.